driving in, extreme low tides. I was thinking we should be clamming this morning.
Yeah.
It's a clamming tide.
Yeah, they are minus tides, it looks like.
If I get stymied, I'll say, Andrea, could you just give me that? Did you share the chamber letter with Andrea?
I didn't give her the actual letter, I just
Okay.
told her about
Okay.
it and gave her a chance to
Figured you were
take a
doing
quick look at this so she can have it, because she didn't have it with her. So, yes,
Great.
she should be ready to address.
Right.
Under which goal, under which.
Yeah.
Catch up, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
That are really helpful.
Because it would have been terrible. Well, yeah. Good morning, Jane. Are you ready? Okay, and Debbie, are we ready in the back? Okay, well, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website or to tctvonline.com, click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room for public comment? We have one. Great, thank you. Okay, we'll call you up in just a moment. Okay. Thank you. And do we have anybody registered online, Debbie? No, we do not. Okay, thank you. All right, then we will call this meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Doug, will you start us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. I will invite everyone to sign the guest list, and we'll start off with public comment. And I'll invite Justin Oftermeyer up to give us some public comment. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Sent you all an email yesterday and this morning with a corrected letter. This is impressive. So I just wanted to, we have a letter regarding the Tura minor plan amendment, and I just wanted to make public comment. The details are on the letter, but we just wanted to make sure as a chamber that we've been clear that that our request to not concur with the Tura amendment is not about the fire department. It is about the use of funds. The fire department, we support the need for an emergency generator. It's the use of funds that we're concerned about and the purpose of how those funds are used as they remain for economic development. So as you take that into consideration, I just want to offer in public statement that we are willing to help the fire department in locating and grant writing for that emergency generator. So I'm here to answer any questions on my letter.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Well, thank you. I understand we'll deal with this matter formally again under item number 6. So I think I'd like to leave my remarks until then, if that's all right.
Sure.
Same here, thank you.
Okay, so Justin, did the chamber provide the letter to Tura? Is the Tura board
Well, I gave it to the chair, Logan lady, but he's apparently no longer the chair, or is stepping down. So, trying to work that detail out. I also sent it to Brian Cameron, who I understand is no longer the chair, so of the fire department, of the fire board. So, some details to work out there. This was board approved by the chamber board on Friday, so it's been a quick timeline. So trying to get it to the right people with those two. It has been sent to the city of Tillamook and the Tillamook School District also.
Thank you. Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah.
Will you please hand it to Andrea so she can read it before they present on the item? Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Well, moving on to item 4, we have one unscheduled item that we will take before item 6. And the first thing we're going to jump into is our presentation with the Tillamook Off-Road Alliance, TORDA. And we have with us Ron Baker this morning, who's going to give us a presentation about TORDA. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, and thanks for having me come. My name is Ron Baker. I'm a board member for the Tillamook Off-Road Trail Alliance, or TORDA. We started back in 2016, 2017, and are a nonprofit in South Tillamook County. So the main purpose of TORDA, our original board members saw a need and want for some off-road cycling down in South County. And where that came from was they went to a meeting with the Forest Service, where the Forest Service was looking for community input on the Sand Lake planning area. And so we formed the nonprofit and then started I'm nervous about this, sorry.
Okay.
We started to develop a relationship with the Forest Service. And Debbie, she has a couple slides that I'll get to as we go through. So through that, we obtained a $25,000 grant from the state to develop a master plan for the Sand Lake planning area. What that encompasses is basically like a 30-mile all skills level mountain bike trail area. 3 parking lots throughout it, and I'll get to a picture towards the end. And this is going to be a trail system where anybody from a kid learning to ride a bike, like you see in the picture here, all the way up to your expert level, super avid mountain biker can come with a family, with their friends, and enjoy what we love about the Oregon coast. So I'm gonna circle back to the Forest Service project because I think it's important to kind of get some history of TORDA and like where our roots are with the community of Tillamook County. So like I said, we were established in 1617, and we helped complete the Pacific City Pathways Trail, which is off of Cape Kiwanda Drive on the east side, kind of behind the new skate park that was built back there. It's a 1.2-mile trail. If it's miserable in the wintertime and you want to get outside and walk the dog or get your kids out or just get out and enjoy the outdoors, it's a really well-protected area, and I highly encourage anybody to go check it out. Something else that we're really proud of through TORDA is our relationship with the K-8 school with Misty Wharton, the superintendent. Misty, who is like a 4th and 5th generation Tillamook County-er, and who's been amazing to work with, saw the need to have like cycling access for the kids. Because there's not a lot of activities we can do when we're young and still do when we're in our 60s and 70s. But biking's one of them. And she saw the need to give kids access to that. So through a partnership with her, we've developed what you see here, which is the All Kids Ride program. And we donated $10,000 to the school, and they trained a PE teacher. And then now they can teach kids how to ride bikes through their PE curriculum. So kindergartners, 1st graders learn to ride the bikes here where they don't have pedals. And then like there's a fleet when they're 3rd to 4th grade where they learn to ride pedals. Where that funnels into is we go to the next slide, please, Debbie. We've built a skills park behind the K-8 school now. And that's my daughter there, who's 7 at the time, where again, all levels can go up there and have a great time. There's some expert lines, there's some beginner lines where the kids can kind of learn what they can do with their bike. This next summer, we're looking at building what you see on the right, which is a paved pump track It's asphalt, and they're engineered where you can traverse the whole thing without ever pedaling, but you get an amazing workout. And this is going to be, you can kind of see the soccer field there. Again, this is going to be right behind the K-8 school. Another project that we're working on with a private timberland above the school is connecting the town of Cloverdale to the K-8 school. So we're going to be, we're working on a contract right now with the private timber where we'll construct a 3 to 5 mile multi-use path that will connect the two schools. Because I'm sure you've seen driving 101, I would never ride on that road, let alone let any kids ride on it. So for the kids to be able to have, the kids and adults, families, to be able to connect Cloverdale to their local school and then have these biking amenities, I think is huge for the local community and being healthy and getting out in our beautiful outdoors. That gets me back to the Forest Service project. We go to the next slide, please, Debbie. So where this is at, it's about a 1/4 mile north of Whalen Island on National Forest, up off the 1004 road. We have 3 parking lots kind of identified there in the red, and they're kind of hard to see, and roughly 30 miles of trails that are currently flagged and GPSed. Now you hear like 30 miles of trails, like, oh my God, this is going to be a tiered or a phased project where it'll slowly be built out over years to come. We currently have about $270,000 of grant money, $70,000 from the TLT fund that we've all been patiently waiting to spend, and I appreciate your patience with this because I know that money is there to spend on the local community, and it's been hard for us just to kind of sit with our hands tied. And then we also have $200,000 from the state RTP fund that we'll be able to spend on this first phase. So make sure I'm hitting everything here. So where the process is at is the Forest Service, like I was talking to you, Commissioner Scar, like COVID really hurt, or I should say, slowed everything down. We've been through 5 different rangers for the Forest Service, and it's been really difficult because the staff will get motivated, or not motivated, but working through the project, and then they have people leave and new people come in, and it's like relearning it every time. So we have a great relationship with the current ranger, Sean, right now, and they're still finishing the environmental assessment, and we're hoping in the next week, 2 weeks to a month to have kind of a, like, what's becoming of that. So whether we can move forward and establish an MOU between TORDA and the Forest Service, or whether we need to relook at some things. So, whew, I feel like I talked a lot there. Do you have any questions so far?
Not so far. Well, yes. How much of that trail is already developed? Any?
Right now, there's just some old Forest Service roads, some old 2-track that will be kind of incorporated into the trail system. So as of now, there is no, and that was something that kind of became, there's no really easily accessible riding for Tillamook County within like an hour's distance. There's some up in the Tillamook Forest, like Gales Creek area, but like you have to be an expert level rider to go up there and ride. So it's not like, for a young family, it's just not a very good spot to go. I would love at some point to meet individually with you and take you up there for a little field trip. They recently thinned through quite a few areas of where we'll have trail, and there's now these amazing 180-degree panoramic views of Whalen Island, Sand Lake, and Cape Lookout that are up there. So we're really hoping that, and I know there's been some opposition with this trail system of bringing more people here, especially during peak times. But I think we also have to look at like what this has to do with the community. And I think if you look at like what we're trying to do with the K-8 school, it's giving local kids a safe, easily accessible place to play. And I think we all want that for our kids, and that's really important. But to have that, like, we need the stuff at the K-8 school, and then we need to give them an area like this where they can then take those skills and take it to another level. This is a generational project for us at TORDA. Like, I want my great-grandkids to be able to have access to this. So we want to make sure it's sustainable. And I think that's why we go through that phase system, because there's going to be some growing pains and things that we're going to learn along the way. And the Forest Service knows that and also wants it to be kind of a slow roll. That if we're seeing an increase in use, like how do we make sure that we're managing that increase in use appropriately? Because I don't want trash up there. I don't want or I shouldn't say we as Torta and as a community don't want misuse up there. And that's really important to us to make sure that we leave it better than we found it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
May I ask a
Please.
question? So will Torta operate this park in the sense of making sure that there isn't trash and the trails are maintained? Or does this become a Forest Service facility and do they manage it? How does that work into the future?
So some of that, there's some gray area, but initially there'll be like an operation and maintenance plan where Torta will, so to speak, not lease it, isn't the right word, but we'll have kind of ownership of the trail system and making sure that we're staying within that operation and maintenance plan. We're building trails correctly, and like trash is maintained, and then the Forest Service has certain metrics that and I don't know what those metrics are, but they'll okay, we've hit this certain user number, or we're seeing this much usage in this area. We need to add bathrooms, like pit toilets, or we need to add bear-proof garbage cans. And again, some of that's going to be it's all dependent on a really good relationship between Torta and the Forest Service. So did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So the operations and maintenance plan will spell out a lot of those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm pretty familiar with that part of the world, having lived down there 30-some years, and I know what went on at the improvements there at the middle school and the elementary, and so I'm familiar with that part. Not less so with what you're doing up in the woods, but I think you're on to something, and I certainly encourage it, and I would support what you're doing. One question I have: there's another group that's doing off-road motorized trail bikes in the Sand Lake area, and I can't say their name right off the top of my head, but have you worked with them at all? Are you familiar with those people?
Would that be like OHV use, like motorized, or is it?
Well, it's motorized and backcountry that would work up in the woods right behind Sand Lake, just to the east of Sand Lake.
I mean, I haven't heard of another group besides us, and we're more like bicycle focused. Yeah, not dirt bikes, not OHV at all. So.
Just curious, I'm pretty sure they're the motorized group, and they have a little different take on things for what they're doing. They've been working with the Department of Forestry as well as
Okay.
the U.S. Forest Service. And the reason I brought that up is they indicated, as you just did, there's been some pushback on bringing extra people here, and are they going to, are there accommodations for them? Do they carry out their own trash and all those kinds of issues? And so you've indicated here that you might have a system or bear-proof, if there is such a thing, bear-proof garbage cans. So how, I guess I'd ask you to give us another paragraph on how do you prepare that so that it's essentially no trace camping or no trace visiting?
I mean, one thing that we already have in our favor is our user group tends to be very focused on like that leaving no trace. So, and there's good examples of that all across the state and in the nation where an area that doesn't have a mountain bike trail system was used as just a dumping ground for refrigerators and misuse. And then you bring in a group that really cares about and knows how delicate these systems are, and they take a lot of ownership in it. So part of Torta, as we expand and get the trail system in, will have a large volunteer user base of building, maintaining trails, maintaining the parking areas where we do see the trash usually end up. And then it's that relationship with the Forest Service where we have good communications, whether we're seeing more misuse or trash left, and okay, how do we mitigate this? Do we need to now put in trash cans? Because I'm sure you've seen at Pacific City in the parking lot, you put a trash can there and people will throw trash in it. So do we start small and not have trash cans and make sure that people are taking what they bring? And a lot of that will be spelled out in the operations and maintenance plan that we'll have signed with the Forest Service. So.
Well, good, thank you. I think that makes sense, and you just hope for the best when we were in business, we had a dumpster on the property that we used for our own, but it frequently served the neighbors and the visitors. And I remember one individual who happened to drive a late model Mercedes. He put his trash in there every time he left town on the weekends. It began to irritate me after a number of years. But anyway, that's another subject. But yes, I can see that. And I also believe that bicycles are one of the great things that we do in maybe the whole world, but here too, because they don't emit any pollution. You learn to ride one and you remember it. I think you could ride a bike the rest of your life. It comes back to you. And my bike's hanging in the garage with a flat tire and probably be there for a while. But
Well, we can fix that, Commissioner Olson, and get you up there. Yeah, tour you around.
good for you. I think this is great, and I'd like to see it go forward and with the protections that you've indicated. So thank you.
I also think this is super exciting. I have been to the K through 8 in Cloverdale and seen this was last year in the spring, and I saw I think it was the Skills Park. I think the pump.
The Skills Park, yeah.
The Skills Park, yeah. And it was very impressive, and I was so glad for those kids because I raised my son in South County, and there really was no safe place to ride bikes. And he learned to ride a bike grudgingly at 11 because he was in Boy Scouts and they were going on a bike riding, trek. And so I taught him to ride a bike in a gravel parking lot on the Upper Nestucca, and he fell down a lot of times and resented it. So there really was no safe place. We'd ride bikes on Blaine Road, and the log trucks would fly by us, and it was fairly scary. And then I'd take him places away from Tillamook County to find some safe place to ride bikes. So you're totally right. And I loved your point about bikes being something that children, that we can enjoy in the span of our lifetimes. You can learn as a child and still enjoy as an older person. That was a great point. And I just think I've read some of the opposition about the trails in South County and that it'll bring more visitors, et cetera. But I think visitors are coming here regardless. And personally, I think the way that we're managing visitors is admirable. And I think the visitors who will come to ride these trails aren't going to be on the roads. They're going to park their vehicles and then ride trails, and then they'll use our local businesses, et cetera. They'll maybe stay here. So I think this is a great way to attract visitors who will come and enjoy our natural resources and take care of them, hopefully. And it'll become apparent if they're not. So, then maybe there'll be mitigating systems for that. But I think altogether, I think it's wonderful. While you were talking, I was thinking about once my son learned to ride a bike, all the opportunities that we had that we didn't have before. Like we'd go up to Timothy Lake, and there's a 13-mile trail around the lake, and ride our bikes around the lake, and it was just fabulous. And so I'm very encouraged that local kids. You're right. It'll be a great thing for visitors, but really I'm excited about it for local kids and their families. That it's a healthy activity that people can do together. So I think it's wonderful, and I'm glad you're moving forward with it, and I appreciate you coming and sharing the story with us.
Yeah, and I would just echo what my colleagues have said. I think this is a great opportunity. I appreciate, when we look at our tourism facilities dollars, we have to put them into things that support tourists, which is appropriate, but we also really look for that overlap with how will it serve our residents, to Commissioner Bell's point, and this really will. I mean, it is definitely a both and I have a very similar story. My daughter still barely rides a bicycle, and she's 19. Because we grew up on a gravel road with no good place to learn. She finally did, grudgingly, but still is not a cyclist at all, and it terrifies her. So, for kids to have the opportunity, for the partnership you've created with the Nestucca schools so that every kid gets that opportunity is fantastic. My cautionary tale would be you probably want to start with trash cans. I'm always talking about parking potties and trash as a commissioner, because those are the things that I think part of what frustrates our local folks when we have tourists who come who who leave their trash around, who during the pandemic, we experienced a terrible problem with restrooms, and we always have challenges with parking. So I think in terms of that sort of partnership with the local community, as you develop this, working with the Forest Service and TORDA to say, okay, let's prepare for in advance the impacts that we expect around trash and restroom usage and parking, because that's what will make it more seamless for the local community as this comes on board, and probably quiet or quell some of the concern. People are just fearful. We're still, the pandemic, while it's sort of in our rearview mirror, a lot of
Stardust.
people had a lot of traumatic experiences with tourism
Yeah.
during the time that we didn't have adequate facilities. So I think if we align ourselves with always starting with adequate facilities, the community will receive it in a more positive way. So that would be my word of caution, just in how you begin and when you're building that MOU, being thoughtful about that, because I think it will help. I really do. But I think it's a great project, and I would love to get out there and see it. And I myself am not a cyclist at this point in my life. So, with my own fear and trepidation, it would still be fun to get out there and check it out.
Like I told, with the advent of the assist e-bikes, it makes it a lot more accessible for people. And that's something else too. We want to make sure that we build some trails that are what's called adaptive trails,
Yes.
where people with some physical disabilities can still have access to enjoy the outdoors too.
And appreciate that. We're really
yeah.
seeing that come into so many of our tourism-related facilities now, and it's fantastic. For years, that has not been a focus, and so many people have been unable to enjoy what's here that the rest of us take for granted. So I appreciate that. That's really great.
And one thing I did forget to mention that sparked me, Commissioner Bell, was Misty's also started a mountain bike club, like a racing club with the school, and it's become pretty big nationwide. And again, that just feeds into the trail, because they're going to need a legal place to ride. And you can only do so many laps on the skills park, because they need to physically train, and this gives them the avenue to go someplace, climb an hour up, have trails coming down to really train their bodies for the sport that they're doing.
Yeah.
But then in 10 years, when they come back after college, they still have that love, hopefully, for what they did. And then they're the ones that we're gonna have to pass the torch to someday. So it's, like I said, it's a real generational project that we're working on.
I do have one more question. On the subject of e-bikes, I've read that there is conflict between mountain bikers and folks who use e-bikes. So do you perceive a conflict? Are there different kinds of trails for the different kinds of bikes?
So there's kind of a clear delineation of assist versus non-assist. So what should be legal on the Forest Service will be assist only, where there's no throttle. You have to be pedaling for it to give you power. Whereas the other classes where you can it's almost like a motorized motorcycle, where you just twist the throttle or push the button and it goes. Those will not be legal. And it's been kind of a contentious thing throughout the country, because the e-bikes kind of took us by storm. We saw it coming, but then it happened so fast, and then COVID made it happen even faster. So, but yeah, there's a very clear delineation of these are assist only under a certain speed. So, and they're pretty easily recognizable when you're on the trail too. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Thanks for being here.
appreciate your
And thank you
time.
for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have one unscheduled item, and we're going to take that up now. It's consideration of amendment number 3 to number 6028, grant agreement number 2019-P-5, transient lodging tax for destination management. Rachel Haggerty, Chief of Staff, good morning.
Well, Ron's done all the background on what we're doing here, so I'll just cut to the need for the agreement modification. The board awarded TLT funds to TORDA in 2020, and for some of the hurdles that you've heard, they just haven't had a chance to get through the process to where they could put this money on the ground. So we have done extensions before, we've done modifications, and I think, I was talking to Ron, I'm like, is this the year, or do we need to put the money back into the pool? And I'm feeling pretty confident that this is the year they're gonna get through the federal process and be able to put this on the ground. So I very much I'm very sympathetic to the process and hurdles that they've had before them, and I really appreciate the grassroots effort and the drive of this group to do what they're doing in the community. So this is a 1-year extension going through June of next year, and it's ready for consideration.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Thank you. No, I think timing is good and things, we're well past COVID, not that there won't be some other issue that nobody sees coming, but let's take that money and put it on the ground where it'll do some good, quite literally.
Agreed.
As do I. And I am aware of the turnover at the U.S. Forest Service, the ranger turnover. That's been, I've tracked at least 3 of those folks. I didn't know there were 5. And so,
There's like an interim one
Oh.
you kind of count.
yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and so you're absolutely right. It's a huge project to reorient new leaders to that project every time and then get them on board, it has to be a significant challenge.
And their staff too, who was like huge, like biologists who really have a vested interest in this, then go somewhere else, you have to retrain the biologist and the ranger, and it's just this trickle down that really slowed the project.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of Amendment Number 3 to Number 6028, Grant Agreement Number 2019-P-5, Transient Lodging Tax for Destination Management, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Okay, item 6 is consideration of a resolution in the matter of proclaiming the approval of the Fourth Amendment minor, adding a fire station project to the Tillamook Herbal Renewal Plan. And with us, we have Andrea Goss, Administrator of the Tillamook Urban Renewal Agency, and Paul Edwards, Tillamook Fire Chief. I'll invite you both to come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Good morning. So this morning is the first time I've seen this letter, and I was a bit surprised. I'm sorry that the chamber didn't send one to me as the administrator of Tura. I would have been a little more prepared. But a couple of the things that it says here is the planned backup generator for the fire department does not meet, nor does the planned project meet any stated goals of Tura. And that's not true. So goal 4 for Tura is to maintain, remodel, construct public facilities and public safety facilities and enhance safety. Well, this absolutely enhances the safety, and I'm going to ask Paul to speak to some of these things, and that's one of them. And goal 5 is to improve the safety of older buildings, seismic stability, and fire safety. And again, Paul will address this, but it absolutely, this backup generator does need to be there for safety, not only of the fire department and the employees there, but of the community. So it's absolutely necessary. Now, I was pleased to see that the chamber is willing to explore alternative funding for I'd love to save the $188,000 for other projects, but my understanding, and Paul, you can speak to this as well, is that the fire department has looked into alternate funding for the last year, and they've just not been able to find it. So if they need it, whether it comes from Tura or someplace else, and right now, my understanding is it needs to come from Tura. So,
Yes,
Paul, do you
I
want to
agree.
address those two?
Yes, regarding
The
Fund-
safety and seismic.
well, first off, the fund research, we've looked at multiple places for funding. Spirit Mountain Community Fund, they do a matching grant, but that's only 50%. We have no funds available to match that. Chinook Winds Community Fund, they have a $10,000 cap. Looked at PUD, small grants for community projects or events. Also looked at BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. That's a federal grant. It's spending towards research-supported proactive investments in community resilience. We had no luck there. We looked at Ag West Community Fund. and they focus on fire departments with firefighting as specific for tools and gear. We also looked at, like Mr. Offermeyer suggested, was a Spire grant. We looked at that too, and with nothing to come of it. So that was 6 different funds we researched, and then we thought about, well, what about the Tura? Tillamook Fire District has been in a 69 cents per thousand millage rate since the late 90s because of Measure 5 and Measure 50, which that 69 cents is not keeping up with inflation. We're just barely squeaking by year to year with our tax revenue. When Tura was developed in the late 90s, I believe also, that took away any of our tax funding for any new business buildings, anything in the Tura zone. So we lost tax revenue there also. So we're really running a very tight budget at the district. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're running off, as you know, a 1943 World War II generator in the building as it is, which there are no parts available if there's any breakdowns. That building over there, the district building, Station 71, is going through a seismic upgrade here recently, or soon, May 2025, which will upgrade that building to withstand the big one, supposedly, hopefully. We would like to coincide the generator project with that seismic upgrade project. That generator benefits Tillamook proper, the citizens there. If we do have the big one and or any other type of emergency where the electricity is going to be out for a long period of time. We could have refrigeration over there. We could have heating, cooling. That could be a location for food, water, housing for citizens if necessary. I mean, there's lots of things that we could do over there if we had a reliable energy source. So anyway, that's my spiel on that.
Thank you.
And I feel like there's no question that they need the generator, and I think the commissioners agree with that. The question is, should it be Tura money? And it sounds to me like it needs to be. They have been presenting to Tura for the last few months, indicating that they've applied to other places and with no luck.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners?
Well, thank you. I guess I'm remembering a week ago, I thought this question was asked and answered. Apparently not. So I would ask a couple of things. First of all, Joanna is, according to the letterhead, your current president. I'd like to hear from the president as well as the executive director. We've heard from Justin, and then I would have a couple of other questions. If it's all right, could we ask the chamber president to offer her
Absolutely.
views?
Did not expect to speak. I think I said I wasn't going to speak
She
today.
did.
Yeah, so,
Joanna, can you come just to the microphone? Because anybody online, otherwise it doesn't necessarily pick up what you're saying. Thank you.
so this was brought up at,
Yourself.
oh, I'm Joanna Stelzick. I am the chamber board president. And this was brought up at our Friday meeting. Justin had this already on the agenda, and I had heard it when I was randomly here, a little bit about it when I was randomly here on your board briefing. I think that was Wednesday afternoon. And so, you know, he talked about from the business perspective, because the chamber represents the businesses. That's what we're here to do. We're the voice. The chamber is the voice for the businesses. And so he discussed that there was concern about the funding and changing the funding scope to fund this project, writing in a new project, basically changing the scope of what the funds were intended for, and for urban renewal for the businesses, and that there was concern from our, you know, from a chamber's perspective in the businesses. And so the board agreed to agreed to address the agencies that are involved in changing this language so the fire department can have the funding through TURA, and wanted to give that different perspective from the business's point of view, just so that you had well-rounded information. You know, the decision is ultimately up to you, the school district, the fire department, the city of Tillamook. So just giving you another thing to think about while you're making your decision. And, you know, you're part of a board. When you make decisions, you know, the board supports the decisions of the board. So, and as chamber board president, I'm part of that board. So that's from the chamber perspective and the board perspective.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joanna. I guess my comments would be, is like I said, I thought we had resolved that, and this is not, we're only one of four, and there needs to be 3 or 4, as I understand it, that.
3, yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, emergency management across the county is a big deal. We
Yeah.
employ a full-time emergency manager, as you know. It's been a marvelous success story in the North County under Linda Klazowski's leadership, and the South County is coming along as well. But the area in the center of the county, meaning Tillamook, is less well organized in my judgment, and I know without knowing all the details, the fire district recently lost a levy and has had, I guess I'd just use some turmoil and turnover, and I think maybe that's settled and going forward. But I see one of the weak links in Tillamook County is the center of the county. Now, you're not oceanfront, but you're still the hub of things, and 911 is across the street. And so I'm wondering why that without a definitive source of funding, as you indicated, to do this quickly, to replace a generator that's older than anybody in the room, including an old guy like me, is not the right thing to do. So for my part, I'm going to support what we talked about last week, is that the county not go where you're asking us to go and stay, and at least for my part, is we stay where we are and see if the money can go then to replace the generator, because a generator is pretty fundamental. When things go bad, you need power. You need it for lights, for maybe heat, for some kind of refreshing cooking or sanitary needs, and you need it for communications. And if you don't have that, it makes life a whole lot more difficult. So I'm going to stay where we were last week for my part. I don't know what my colleagues will do, but you've answered my questions, and I appreciate that you came through the channels and did this appropriately. But I think the better idea is to get this money on the ground, get a generator in, and back up the fire department, because they're such a critical part of what goes on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate the alternate perspectives. It's always good for us to make sure that we are hearing from everyone, right? So I appreciate the chambers bringing forward another perspective. I think it's good for us. And I will say for myself, it made me go back this morning. After I got the letter, I went back this morning and went back to the plan, just to say, does it fit? You know, does it really fit? And if so, where does it fit? And I will say, I did also find the same things that Andrea pointed out to us around Goal 4 and Goal 5, both of which talk about public facilities and safety, and in fact, about fire safety specifically. And I look at the generator, I suppose, as part of the seismic upgrade. It's part of that entire project, and in fact, seismic is listed in here. So I think from my perspective, it does fit the plan, which was, you know, part of the question. I would be curious, now you mentioned that this was not needed until, or would not be purchased until the seismic upgrade was done, which is about a year from now when it would be complete. Now we can approve it, we can put it in the plan, and there's still time in that ensuing year to look for other funds, which the chamber has indicated they're willing to support that search for other funds, which would mean it's in the plan. TURA would be able to award it if they chose. But if the chamber did follow through in assisting with finding other funding, if other funding was found, TURA would have the opportunity to direct those funds elsewhere if they were not needed for the fire. So I guess I would encourage that sort of a thought process, which says, because I am also inclined to approve it because I do see it in the plan and I do see the need for it. But I would love to see the partnership that the chamber is putting forward continue. And maybe when the time comes, TURA will not need to do the entire $188,000. Maybe they'll need to do $100,000 thousand, and 88 will have come from grants that the chamber was able to secure, or something along those lines. But by putting in the plan and approving it, we assure that this generator will come, right? That it is needed and that it will happen, but there is the opportunity for that partnership. So that's my thought, and
Just a quick question, because I'm not as deeply familiar with it as you guys are with the plan. So for the reason to get your approval and the consent from the other entities is because it sounds like the scope fits what the funds are for. So
Right.
why do you have to do special write-in of the fire department? Is it because they're one of the districts that is receiving the funding?
So
And they're
in-
also the ones that decide, or like?
Did you want to take that, Andrea? I'm going to have my.
Sorry.
No, this is a good conversation. It's good for everybody.
I want to make sure that I know, you know.
So this is a minor amendment to the plan, and as such, we are required to notify three of the four we're required to notify all four of the taxing district entities that could result in some tax, not getting as much tax. And as Joanna said, that the entities are the city, the county, the school district, and the fire district. And so I sent a packet to each of those four districts. So does that answer your question, Joanne?
Well, I'm just
So
wondering why the fire department, well, you have to do a special write-in if it already falls within the scope of funding.
Yeah, we do, because it wasn't specific, so,
Yeah, so I'm holding the plan in front of me. If you go back into, I believe it's Appendix A of the plan, there's a list of projects that were generated at the time that the plan was generated. And so if it is not one of the projects on the list from when the plan was generated, or that has not already been added to the plan, then it would need to be added to the plan to be acceptable. So it fits the goal, but of course, again, you think back when this was done in 2006, I think is when this started. Everybody sat down and said, what are the plans, what are the projects we think we're gonna do? And so there is a list in here of those. It's not on that list.
and this is considered a minor amendment because the project costs less than $500,000, so that's part of that. And it talked about safety, but it didn't list specifically for the fire district to get this generator.
So it's a minor amendment to the plan, and in order to do an amendment to the plan, minor or major, you have to have 2 or 3, how many?
I have to have three of the four
four
districts
after
that would, have impact from the tax.
That answer your question? Okay.
Good
All right,
question.
you're
No,
welcome.
great
Yeah,
question.
it is a
Because
good
the
question.
the public watches, right? And so if you have a question that
Yeah.
somebody else out there has it too.
I have another question when you're, you had asked it now.
Please.
Oh, thank you, okay. Of these other three, have they taken a position on this yet?
They have not responded to us yet.
Okay, then the second question is, the total budget of Torta, how much is that?
Of Tura,
Yeah, Tura.
oh, it's millions of dollars. But I don't know how much we have. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Is this 5% of the budget or 25% or?
Well, right now, we get funding from banks, and we have to pay the banks back. I don't have my financial statements here, and I'm really new to this position. But we're in the process of going out for new funding right now.
Well, I'm just saying, as a percent of your total, approximately, were we talking 5 or 10% or 30, 40? I mean, is it a big impact to your budget, or is it relatively modest, meaning?
It's
less than
relatively
20%?
minor, and I can't give you a percentage.
Doug, again, if you go back into the appendices of the document, it looks at, because if I understand Tura correctly, they have the ability to accept indebtedness that then is paid off
Right.
on tax increment financing. So in terms of that, their budget, I believe they're approved up to 15 million and change in indebtedness. I don't know how much indebtedness they have today based on what's in here, because it doesn't have a current statement. But you can take a look. You can also look at, again, which projects were identified and at what cost. So there is a year-by-year plan of, you know, how and where they expected to invest. And so if you take a look at 23, 24, is that what we're in? 24, 25?
in
We just
24,
started 24,
25,
25, didn't we? That the expectation in 24, 25, I think, was to increase their indebtedness by 2.4 million.
Okay, well, thank you. That's helpful because I don't have that document or haven't seen it. And so I'm wondering if it's a significant, and I would then consider, based on what she just said, relatively insignificant. Not that 180,000 is insignificant.
Sure.
But if you're dealing in millions or tens of millions or, you know, 4, 5, 6 million, it's a relatively modest amount. In other words, if it were a half of your budget,
Right.
I think I might look at this totally differently, but it's something that's manageable and you have the ability to borrow and otherwise generate some cash when you need it. So I guess I'll stay where I was, and I think for my part in the county's vote that I think we're on track to be one of those that say go ahead and get it done, at least for mine.
And I really appreciate all the information that you had that I didn't have, but the idea of the chamber helping the fire department possibly find some of that funding, and maybe Tura won't have to invest that, but we are willing to, so, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Justin to say something.
I think Justin Oppenheimer, to that vein, Doug, it's a good point. While you have the current numbers in front of you from a budget standpoint, I did not take the time to look it up on my phone as I was sitting there, but I believe Tura is they've paused all funding, alternative funding, because this is a significant part of the funding left. So this is before the return of $200,000 or roughly from a grant that was given is now coming back. This was approximately 50% of the funding left in the current funding pool. So it's not minor. So as Joanna was talking about, the intent of urban renewal when it's created is to revitalize properties, to increase the property values so that the taxing districts that signed on to it at the end of that get a windfall, because those properties are now a higher value, the increments of what that was increased through these revitalization efforts. So urban renewal right now, until it obtains another round of funding, is essentially out of money from a investment standpoint. I mean, there's money pending, the projects that have been approved. This is close, maybe 40%, because we're talking about pretty close numbers, but it's a significant amount of money available. And when we're talking about revitalization projects in downtown, and we're locking up funding for a year down the road, you know, that has a little bit of an effect of downtown properties. And so, you know, I want to, while I have the mic, I'd be remiss, if you go at goal 4 and goal 5 and you read further down, you can stretch. I do think that you know, in 2019, the legislature made this move. It was a recent move to require 3 of 4 large and tax districts to approve these kind of amendments because of what was happening in urban renewals. And urban renewals can fund public projects, but oftentimes it's public projects that are infrastructure that relate to the district as a whole. And again, I will sit here and say over and over again, the fire department needs an emergency generator. What I'm saying is these funds, I do not believe are the appropriate funds for section 4A, 4B, 4C, if you read further down into the goals. And so, but it is, I think, to your point, I think it's important to know that this is a significant part of the funding left. And I think that if, you know, if Tura gets the next round of funding, I still don't think it fits, but I think it buys us time to find other funding. So I'll give you that.
Do you know when Tura gets the next round of funding?
We're in the process right now of, we have our attorney and our financial advisor going for that round of funding. So right now, Right now, we have $850,000 in our general fund, but we have committed 522,000 of that to private funding, and then the 188 to the fire department, to the public. So it does significantly lower our amount that we can pass out, and we are not accepting applications right now, and we won't until our new round of funding comes in. And I expect to hear from the gentleman who's helping us with that today. Of course, that doesn't help right now, but Justin's right. It's a significant amount of what we, in terms of our commitments. So.
Okay.
Could I make one more comment? So, and I guess what the other piece I would say is that Tura has a board that is made up of community members and stakeholders. And Tura, this is their plan that they work with on a regular basis and dig in deeply to. And if the Tura Board of Directors believes this is the best use of these funds at this time, I'm also inclined to support the people who are living this work in a much more daily and deeply felt way than we are sitting here today. So I guess I would just also throw that out there as part of my thinking process is this is what they do. And if they have carefully considered that 500,000 is going to these projects and they feel this is the right space for it, I guess I hesitate to change that for them.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I think you, that does change the complexion of what you're doing a little bit with your cash on hand, but you have a methodology, and as you said, you're going forward to get some additional funding, and you have the ability to borrow. So I don't know that it changes. I guess I see a fire department as, without an emergency generator, would be like Safeway with no milk. Something like that. So let me ask then the chief. You said this would go in when you do the seismic upgrades and all of that. Is it built into the infrastructure of the building as you contemplated, or would it be just a freestanding? In other words, could you go buy it right now and have it in service in the interim if something went wrong next week?
Yes, we can, because we plan on putting outside, currently that 1943 generator is inside the building. We were planning on putting the new generator on the outside, on the exterior, on a slab. So yes, the
So that
generator
that
could
could
go in
be
right
done
now.
sooner than later. If you got this money now,
we
you
can
could
put it
start
in
the
right now.
process. And I'm
Pretty much.
thinking of our cable landing station in Pacific City and others that if you don't have generation, when something goes wrong, you're basically out of business.
Pretty much.
And I can't imagine the fire department not having a generator. They just, I'm pretty familiar with the main system in Hebo as I managed that project when it came online. And that was one of the first things, is get a generator, get it outside, get it serviceable, and make sure it works about as quickly as you hook up to electricity at all. So I guess I'm not gonna change where I am on this. It's up to the others where they go, but I'd like to see that generator sooner than later. I think it's a public policy mistake if you don't.
They couldn't even open their garage door if the generator goes out.
Hopefully there's a manual override,
Yeah, we can do manually,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're 12-foot doors. I mean, it takes some time,
of course,
and firefighting time is of the essence,
yes.
as we all know.
Well, I just want to say that I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate the chamber coming forward. Thank you, Justin and Joanna, for being here with us and providing another perspective, the business perspective. When I got Justin's email, this letter last night, I read through it and I thought, oh, well, that's important. You know, it's important to, when we talked about this last week, I wasn't thinking about where that money might go alternatively, you know, and how the business community, because Justin was absolutely right in what I took from his letter, that Tura is for economic development within a particular region. Well, it is, and so it was eye-opening for me, and I'm just saying that I appreciate the conversation because that's an important thing to consider. You're right, that, I mean, yes. And that caused me to look at the goals and say, well, is this part of Tura's goals or is it not? And it looks like it is. And I really appreciate Paul being here and talking about the fact that the fire department is underfunded and why. I agree completely that the fire department is underfunded and that you're locked into an inadequate tax rate and it really hamstrings your operations. You're probably understaffed. You probably don't have a grant writer on your staff. I'm guessing. It's a safe guess. What I hadn't factored in is that the formulation of TURA causes the fire department to not receive those taxes, which is also true. So this is just really an enlightening conversation. And what I think everybody agrees on is that the fire department is very important, and we all want the fire department to have a generator. So I don't want this to be to look as though the chamber doesn't support the fire department, because clearly they do. So I really appreciated Commissioner Scar's suggestion that if, not that we're telling the TURA board what to do, because we're not and we can't, but if the 3 of the 4 districts support this, and then there's a period where we're waiting for the seismic upgrade, and the chamber can jump in and help the fire department find alternate funding, that TURA could elect, the board could elect to redirect that funding. I think that's a great solution, and I totally support that.
And I'm not sure how, once they've committed the 188,000, I'm not sure how they can uncommit that, but I will bring it up at our board meeting tonight.
Okay.
It's an interesting possibility.
Okay, all right. Is there anything else? I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, consideration of resolution number 24-011 in the matter of proclaiming the approval of the 4th Amendment minor, adding a fire station project to the Tillamook Urban Renewal Plan. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for this discussion. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you, Commissioners, appreciate that.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is consideration of amendment number 1 to the State of Oregon Criminal Justice Commission Specialty Court Grant Program Agreement number SCP-23-39 for the Tillamook County Mental Health Court. Lieutenant Ani Seaholm, good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. So for consideration, this is amendment number 1 for a grant agreement for a Criminal Justice Commission grant for our Behavioral Health Court. We had the opportunity to apply for some supplemental funds, which was just shy of $143,000 to add to our already existing grant. And so some of the things that this grant funds, it's all for the Behavioral Health Court. It covers some salary costs for POs involved, some administrative costs, Tillamook Family Counseling for clinician, peer support, UAs, jail staff, rent, other subsidy needs, supports, incentives. So a large list of things that this money goes to for the Behavioral Health Court and the participants. So like I said, we were able to apply for some supplemental funds that brought our whole grant amount to $546,037. And this grant goes through the end of, December 31st, 2025. So it's a little more than a 2-year timeframe. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And then the one thing I did forget to add to the packet I sent in was the grant worksheet. So I do have that. I don't know if that's something you guys want to see, or I can just submit it later to you all and the treasurer.
I don't think we need to see it
Okay.
right this minute. Thank you. Because we're talking about adding. It seems like rare good news that there's supplemental money that's available that we can apply for. Commissioners?
Yeah, I would agree. This Behavioral Health Court, from everything I am hearing, and I sit on the steering committee of it, has been very, very successful. That we are seeing members of our community that have ended up in the criminal justice system because of their behavioral health actually get the help that they need and the support and training and opportunities and moving forward. You know, we're having graduations from Behavioral Health Court and we are not seeing those people back in our criminal justice system. And I think it's fantastic. So the fact that they want to add 72,000 more each year is really beneficial. So I know that the costs of this have been carried by the sheriff, by probation and parole. They've been carried by Tillamook Family Counseling because the grant doesn't cover everything. I hope that this really brings us to a place where, that it really is covering, what needs to be done, or closer, at least. Rarely does the state cover everything, but
It does help.
yeah, it does help. So thank you for bringing it forward, Anya. No, I think this is great.
Commissioner?
Oh, thank you. I too would support this. I've always liked the notion of specialty courts because a general court, like a circuit court, it deals with all kinds of matters, but there's so many things that go on in society and change that if they have a specialty court, and in this case, there is one, that to me, that makes a better way forward, more expeditious, and maybe it's more flexible. I don't know that for sure, but I think it probably would be. And this additional funding makes sense, so let's get it done.
Terrific. I agree. I think it's a great opportunity. So we're
Okay.
ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Amendment Number 1 to the State of Oregon Criminal Justice Commission Specialty Court Grant Program Agreement Number SCP-23-39 for the Tillamook County Mental Health Court, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Commissioners. Item 8 is consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Anna Mitchell to attend the National Provider Enrollment Conference on Medicare in San Diego, California, 8/27/24 through 8/30/24. And with us, we have Irene Fitzgerald, the Accounting Manager for Health and Human Services. Good morning, Irene.
Good morning.
So go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I am presenting travel for Anna Mitchell. She's a longtime employee in the accounting department, and she has been taking on some very heavy-duty administrative work to help us out after we had longtime employees retire a few years ago. And a lot of that's to do with credentialing and privileging. As you know, we have clinics and we have multiple providers that need to have credentialing and privileging done when they start and periodically. And that is very time consuming work. And the transition, when we have currently a contracted credentialing department or agency that hasn't worked out the best that we would hope. And we want to transition it back in-house so that we have more control over the credentialing and privileging of our providers. So Anna is wanting to do that, and she has gone to a conference with other FQHCs and has learned a lot. And this particular training or conference was suggested by the FQHCs. Medicare, as you know, is most of the rules that we have regarding billing is related to Medicare rules and guidelines. So this is a really good conference. It's in San Diego, and we would like to send her to that so she can get some additional training for the very important role that she's wanting to take on.
Thank you, Irene.
Mhm.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I think this is a great thing. Obviously, the FQHC, Federally Qualified Health Center, that operates under the county operates through the payments we receive. And so we are billing Medicare, we're billing Medicaid, we have private insurance. I mean, there's just a ton that goes into the work of the accounting department at the health clinic. And privileging and credentialing is critical because if we don't have everything spelled out correctly for those medical providers, we can't bill. And so it's crucial. And if we are currently having challenges with the service that we're using, bringing this in-house where we have the control to do that sounds like it's a good idea and a training that's much needed for Anna. So I am in support.
Thank you. Commissioner?
As do I, thank you. We've had requests come from the health department fairly often, and I've supported them all, and I would continue to support this. Simply, the only thing I would say is that we all have health needs and health services from time to time, and billing is part of the system. And if you don't have well-trained people who are current, that, in my mind, is not the place to cut back on training at all. I would like my doctor to have be knowledgeable on the latest and greatest things that are happening, because I've read somewhere where if you don't upgrade or keep keep current, everything you learned in medical school, or a good share of it, is obsolete after about 8 or 9 or 10 years, something like that. Not totally obsolete, but you need the training and along with the support services, so this makes sense. The only thing I'd say is it's the wrong time of year to go to San Diego, but that's neither here nor there. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. I also support this. Medical billing is very complicated. And you know, all the time you hear about people's medical bills being inaccurate or confusing, or, you know, it's a very complicated system. So I'll be interested to hear the updates about when we take that process back from the contractor and bring it back in-house, if it works better. I certainly hope it does, and it makes perfect sense that we need somebody highly trained to lead that project. So I'm totally supportive.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, in consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Anna Mitchell to attend the National Provider Enrollment Conference on Medicare in San Diego, California on 8/27/2024 to 8/30/2024, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Item 9 is consideration of infrastructure contract number 4768-DR-OR with the State of Oregon Department of Emergency Management for Federal Emergency Management Agency Major Disaster Funding. With us, we have Jasper Lind from Public Works. Good morning, Jasper.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm presenting on behalf of the Director of Public Works, who unfortunately could not be here today. As you mentioned, this is infrastructure contract with the state of Oregon, specifically the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, for administration of federal funds that are available through FEMA due to the presidentially declared major disaster that was the severe winter storms that struck our county between January 10th and January 22nd. The aftermath of which is also behind me at the impact of the Big Trout Bridge. This is essentially just an arrangement that we need for the management and administration of federal funding, since they have such significant requirements. And it's one more source that we can rely upon for further funding of addressing the damage that was done during that time period.
Thank you, Jasper. And to be clear, that was this year's storms. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 year ago, the southern end of that Big Trout Bridge was heavily impacted, and we were able to save it before it went into the river itself. Flash forward to this year, and the river has meandered to the other side of the bank and nearly taken out that northern landing of it as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Thank you. Only comment I'd have is the system, as cumbersome as it is, works. Even though this happened some months ago, you get in the queue and there needs to be certain declarations by certain levels of government. But eventually, the people who need to step up do step up, and the work gets done. It's just sometimes frustrating it takes so long, but it does get done, and this one is a pretty good example. I've been up there personally and looked at that, and we've talked about it numerous times. It's Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature does, and we have to respond. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, this is, I know as we were all watching and waiting and wondering if we would get the necessary declaration for this particular storm, and we did. There was enough damage not only here but across the state for it to be declared, so that is in our benefit. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to briefly touch on the biological opinion that we are now facing from FEMA, because one of the questions that people ask is, if the biological opinion is going to impact our planning and development so much, why don't we just tell the federal government to take a hike, that we're not interested in their ideas and plans for us? And this is one of the reasons that we don't, is because we have one of the most disaster-prone counties, and if we tell FEMA to take a hike, we lose the opportunity not only for the flood insurance program, but also for FEMA emergency funds. So they are an important partner. So as we go forward and face the biological opinion and what that means for development in Tillamook County, we can't afford not to. So I think it's just an important piece of what we're working with. So this is a good idea. We need the money to continue to repair the damage.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues, and I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of infrastructure contact number 4768-DR-OR with the State of Oregon Department of Emergency Management for Federal Emergency Management Agency Major Disaster Funding, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jasper.
Thank you.
Item 10 is consideration of an order in the matter of increasing customer rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee, Nestucca Valley Sanitary Service. With us, we have Justin Weiss, the program manager for Tillamook County Solid Waste. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Commissioners. So yes, before you this morning, we have a request from Nestucca Valley Sanitary Service, who services South County. Their last customer rate increase request was adjusted by order 17-43. Basically, it was in 2017, so it's been about 7 years since their last rate increase. And initially, Nestucca Valley did submit a rate report back in April 30th. Each fiscal year, there's typically an April 1st deadline for the rate submission request. That was honored. At that time, no rate increase was requested from Nestucca Valley. They did put in their letter that they did potentially have the opportunity to submit an emergency request, which is cited in Ordinance 4, Section 5, that there is a set deadline, but based on extenuating circumstances, they can submit a request. So because it has been 7 years and they have not requested a rate increase, I did move to approve this. We did approve rate increases back in May for two of our 4 haulers for 2 other service areas. So this is not uncommon, as we've seen with many of the solid waste and across contracts. Inflation is rising, costs are going up, and so we've seen about a 3 to 6% increase. Nestucca Valley today is requesting a 6.1% increase for their rates, and this was discussed, initially started with me. Sandy Dye, owner, reached out to me. We had some conversations. I reviewed the financials, looked at the ordinance, and then I posed this to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee via email. We did want to get a little bit of urgency behind it as we're coming up on a potential August 1st rate increase. That is the hopes of Nestucca Valley, to implement this on August 1st. And so there was an email vote via SWAC that did approve this request. And I also have Chris Bell, who is a consultant with Nestucca Valley Sanitary Services. He's joining us today to provide a little bit more background in depth as to why they're requesting this rate increase a little bit outside the normal range of when these come in.
Thank you. Chris, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, County Board of Commissioners, for hearing this request. Like Justin was saying, when we initially looked at the financials, Sandy was hopeful that the level of tourism and summer activity would remain the same as it has in the previous years, and that hasn't. Once they made the initial assessment that tourism and people visiting South County is down this year compared to previous years, she came to me and said, we need to adjust the rates because they're not going to be as the amount of revenue generating this year is not going to be as robust as previous years. Like Justin was saying, it's been since 2017 that Nestucca Valley has adjusted the rates, and the reason they haven't adjusted rates is there are 3 things. Number one, there's been a higher level of control on controlling costs at the company level. Number 2, there's been a significant increase, post-COVID, of tourism in South County and people moving there and staying there. And number 3, there's been some timing issues associated with getting equipment. It's taken a little bit longer to get the equipment. Now that we've got it, we've got these costs starting to come in. We're looking at those and saying we better adjust the rates accordingly. And we apologize for the tardy request. But again, Sandy was hopeful that she wouldn't have to adjust the rates this year. But when the information started to come in and she realized that we better do something because what we're seeing is a trend in the reduction in tourism. And I can speak firsthand. I was just out at Pacific City a couple days ago fishing. I was able to get in with a few days' notice. So there is kind of a downturn in the amount of garbage being generated, which there is the hopeful a discussion on waste generation and decreasing it. But in this case, if you're a garbage company, it's a double-edged sword. So this is, and again, this request is primarily just to maintain the current operations. And it's been, close to 7 years since we've last adjusted rates in South County.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Thank you. I did attend the meeting of the advisory group there. I guess it was the last one a month ago or a few weeks ago when this came before that group, and the rationale was the same as we've heard today. And for my part, unless legal counsel tells me I can't vote because I pay this rate, and I don't think that would be the case, but I did go through their financials, and there's a reasonably strong case that it needs to be done. And 7 years in an inflationary economy, I think, is actually rather remarkable that we've gone that long without some kind of an adjustment. So I think it's necessary, and I would really like for my garbage to be picked up and not have the workers unhappy and do whatever. And by the way, the service is really pretty good. I've have so few complaints or not heard others, and I pass their trucks on different times coming up this way to the office, and they're out there doing what they do, and let's keep them going.
Terrific.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting about solid waste, it's private business, but they're in contract with the county, so we limit the amount of profit, if you will, that they can have. So they have to prove to us that they need this rate increase. So clearly they've done an amazing job over 7 years of holding things steady and being able to get done, and we've checked on that. They haven't, been making huge amounts of money off us, in order to allow for them to cover this increasing expenses, et cetera. So clearly, if it's something they need. My only question was, you were talking about an August 1st start date. Is there a required notification period or anything in our ordinance for an increase? Because we're sitting here on the 24th of July.
Actually thinking that, Commissioner, when I was sitting there prior to coming up. So, I'd have to look at the ordinance.
Okay.
I don't know if there's, I know Sandy was talking about, as soon as this is approved, doing some outreach in terms of that rate increase. I don't know if it's in the ordinance or not. I'll have to look at that.
I trust that you will check to see if that is in fact something, and I trust that, they want to have their customers aware. But that was my only thought was, wow, that's about a week from now, so.
Yeah, and Sandy expressed some flexibility in the implementation, so if I do find there's a 30-day or a 2-week notice, we can maybe push back the start of that rate increase. So
Thank you.
work with Sandy.
Well, thank you all. This seems obviously justified after 7 years, and so I'm supportive and I'm grateful for the service.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-048 and SWSD number 24-009 in the matter of increasing customer rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee, Nestucca Valley Sanitary Service, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. They'll all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Mr. Bell, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
We'll move on to item 11, which is consideration of change order number 5 to contract number 5098, contract for general services with Christensen Cleaning for janitorial services for the Tillamook County Facilities Project. With us, I believe we do have Kevin Jolly, Facilities Supervisor of the Facilities Department. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning. What you have before you and for your consideration is another extension to continue working with Christensen's Cleaning for the cleaning of the library and what do you call it? Step in whenever someone's on vacation, fill in cleaning for the courthouse. Just extends his existing contract for another year until June 30th of 2025.
Terrific. Commissioners?
Thank you. Is there a change in the rate? I don't have the contract before me, and I'm not sure what we've been paying. Is the rate the same, or did it go up?
No, actually, no, he didn't change his rates from last year onto this year, so it's the same as it was last year.
Okay, thank you. Sounds pretty routine then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was curious with the contract in front of me. It does say the original contract price was $24,999. Have we had this contract for a very long time? Because the
Yep.
new price is $227,000. So I was curious if this is one that's been years and years in the making.
I think we first started doing this on 2019. It says
Okay.
July 18th, so we've had it for a few years.
Okay, that's,
And
thank you.
he's still doing good work for us. We'd like to try to keep him on.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we certainly need clean facilities, so I think this is a priority and I'm supportive.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 5 to contract number 5098, contract for general services with Christensen Cleaning for janitorial services for the Tillamook County Facilities Project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Item 12 is consideration of change order number 4 to contract number 4952, contract for general services with Hasco Stations LLC for the Card Lock Fuel Purchase Project. With us, we have Tillamook County Treasurer Sean Blanchard. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So before you is change order number 4 to contract 4952 with Hasco Stations LLC, formerly Sheldon Oil. This is an extension of their contract term set to expire in June 30th, 2026. This is for the fuel that the county uses with the parks, the sheriff, assessment, all of our departments that have motorical vehicles, and it's just an extension.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. I think maybe I've asked this before on something related. The price of fuel, is it tied to an index, or how does that vary from time to time? In other words, they have a set margin, or what's the mechanical side of the money side?
It's tied to market, I believe. So it changes monthly. It can change weekly, daily, and we're at the whim of what Hasco is charging us.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner?
So this is for the card lock. So is it convenience is why we do this, is so that we can use the card lock and they bill the county directly as opposed to using other stations throughout the county?
Correct. And there is more than just in Tillamook. We can use the Garibaldi CFN cards, and they can be used around the state at certain stations, certain CFN or Pacific Pride stations.
Okay, thank you.
For convenience for our people that are traveling.
Yeah, thank you.
I am supportive. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 4 to contract number 4952, contract for general services with Hasco Stations LLC for the Card Lock Fuel Purchase Project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good day.
You too. Item 13 is consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program number CY22-150 for Vulnerability Management Services. And with us, we have Jeff Underwood, Operations Manager of Information Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. The item before you this morning is we finally got the award of the grant. It seems like it was about a year ago that we applied for this, and I'd given up hope. It took the state a while to get through things, but they finally did approve our grant. As a reminder, it was to do a penetration test of our network to identify vulnerabilities and things that we need to be taking a look at to better secure our network. Our insurance company has recommended a vendor. I've been working with them for a while. So this covers that their work. So it won't be any cost to us, and I think it's a very good thing for the county, but wanted to get your approval before I signed that agreement.
Thank you so much. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. No, I don't have any real questions. I guess my only comment is that, of course, the county some years ago had a major intrusion of our data processing system, and anything that we can do to keep the firewall up, so to speak, is probably a good thing. And I know that even if you have the absolute state-of-the-art, there's somebody out there somewhere in the world who's one step ahead of us, and so you do the best you can and hope for the best, and so I think this is a piece of that, as I understand it. So, yes, let's take the money and do what we can do with that one.
Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah, we need to do what we can to be cyber safe, and in this world, that's a tough thing to do, but taking the steps such as that penetration test are important.
I agree. It's a good opportunity. I'm glad it finally came through. After the CrowdStrike event this last week, I think cybersecurity is on everybody's minds, and you know, we're pedaling as fast as we can to do county business, and whereas the bad actors who want to penetrate systems, all kinds of systems, you know, they never sleep. They're just moving ahead to figure out to find our vulnerabilities. So I'm glad we're moving forward with this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program, number CY22-150 for Vulnerability Management Services, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, item 14 is consideration of modification number 1 to personal services agreement number 6572 with Praxis Political for the Public Safety Radio Communication System Bond Campaign. Rachel Haggerty, Chief of Staff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This November, Tillamook County is going to be putting before the voters a general obligation bond request for $24,400,000 to upgrade the public safety emergency communication system. We've been working with Praxis Political for a little over a month now as our outreach and campaign contractor. We've accomplished a lot so far. We've got a website up that is great, Facebook page, Instagram. They're planning for the production of a video later this week. And this contract amendment is for the production of that video. There was a small amount in the original contract allocated for the video production, and after we got into the project and scoped out the need a little bit more and looked at different vendors, we landed with a contractor, and so we're amending the contract to reflect the actual scope of work for the video. So it's ready for consideration.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions, comments?
Thank you. No, I have no questions. I've been following this pretty closely, and what we're talking about here is it's a factual video being produced and paid for by the county. There's a separate effort on some outside groups and people who would actually promote it, as is allowable, but with public dollars, this is simply to present the facts, and then the people can decide for themselves. But it is coming along on schedule, and the firm that was selected has come through, and they've done everything they said they were going to do so far. So, yes.
Terrific.
Perfect. No, I think that's great. We definitely are in need of the radio project, and it's going to take an all-out effort to make sure the public understands, and this is a key piece of that. So for videos, are these going to be then social media, Jane Scott's channel? Where will we utilize these?
All over. So there's a lot of different channels, so to speak. The video is 2 to 3 minutes in its entirety, but it will be constructed so you can take out snippets that are more friendly for Facebook and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're building it so it can have a diversity of uses.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. I think that the communication to the community about why we need this, why it's important, is essential. So and I think you know, in the last 15 years or so, our attention spans have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, and people are less likely to read text that doesn't have pictures or video. So this is a good approach. So thank you.
Yeah, and I will just share, I heard my first radio ad this weekend as I was driving up north. I heard the radio commercial, and I was like, oh, it started, yay, and it sounded great. So I think they do a good job. Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 1 to personal services agreement number 6572 with Praxis Political for the Public Safety Radio Communication System Bond Campaign, I move approval.
Second.
We have, excuse me, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, we're down to board concerns. Commissioners?
Thank you. I don't have anything for this meeting. I think we have a briefing this afternoon, and we'll have a pretty good discussion about proposals to modify the TLT, Transit Lodging Tax. And so, and then perhaps we bring up another item or two, time permitting. So thank you.
Terrific, thank you.
I don't remember if I've shared for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, but in regard to the timber revenue replacement options, there is a meeting that's being set between the Governor's Office, the Department of Education, and the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties to continue to explore the option 3, which is looking at school funding and how that can perhaps come back to counties, since it's unusual that the 15 trust land counties pay a significant amount of local funding toward our schools, whereas the rest of the state schools receive all of our income tax dollars. So trying to figure out if there's a solution in there that absolutely will not harm our schools. So that conversation is being set for the first part of August, after which we will come back to our table here to talk as commissioners with that full information. So I will make sure Doug will be attending, obviously, as our representative, but Commissioner Bell, that you know when that meeting is as well.
Great, thank you. We heard Senator Weber talk about that on the radio yesterday, and you couldn't be with us, so.
Yeah.
But she said that she has been in communication with you on that subject.
Yes, we've been talking.
Okay. All right, here are our meeting announcements. The commissioners will hold a board briefing Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. That's today at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. And the commissioners will hold an executive session on Monday, July 29th, 2024 at 10 a.m. pursuant to ORS 192.662 sub 2 sub A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. So if you'd like more information about those meetings and electronic access to those meetings, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. And with that, we are adjourned at 10:35 a.m. It's a wrap. Well, that was an interesting discussion, and I was glad to